Okay. All right, welcome, guys. This is Shock the Turtle bringing it back to you. I've got my guest, LeeVanDam, here, and we're going to start a new little segment where we're going to talk about everything between what Tekken is. We're going to break it down between the characters that you're going to be choosing, the kind of things that you can do with them. We've got some plans for later on kind of stuff, but kind of wanted to take it simple with the first episode. We're just going to be more like the game, more or less, playing Tekken rather than just sticking into a character for the first episode. But what would you say is the best part about playing Tekken? I mean, tournament-wise.
Tournament-wise, uh, Tekken is a game that you really feel like your hard work pays off. And that's probably the best thing in a tournament is when you win at a high level and you know that your hard work paid off. You know, that's probably the best feeling.
Yeah.
You don't really get ripped off in Tekken very much. You don't really get robbed. Not very often. Normally, you understand what happened to you. And so I think that's what makes Tekken so fun is that you can go back, look at it, and be like, oh, okay, I see what went wrong. And you can actually fix it instead of it being like, oh no, he V-triggered me and hit me with this ridiculous 50-50 where both sides killed me, whatever. In Tekken, you have to get it done. And so when you can take responsibility for things, it's a wonderful feeling to win.
Yeah, definitely. We got to talking a little bit a while back about the differences between this game, and I know you said that your heyday, was really in Tekken 5 era.
Yeah.
What kind of changes do you see from those days to even nowadays for Tekken 7? The biggest differences.
Ooh, okay. Tekken 5 was a really fun game. It was really cheap. Like there were a lot of tech catches. Everybody had some dumb stuff. Damage was high. So Tekken 5 was a game where you really had to be careful because almost any character could beat you at a moment's notice.
Sounds like a balanced game.
It was balanced because everybody was cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Tekken 5 and Tekken 5 had what's interesting about Tekken 5 is even though you had to deal with Steve having 3 different infinites and you dealt with superpowered Devil Jin, you dealt with superpowered Heihachi, you dealt with a lot of just circumstances where characters were ridiculous. Everybody had something where if they caught you slipping, you could win. It may have not been as easily accessible, but everybody had something. And so that's really what made that game great. So you saw a lot of players express themselves by playing the players that they liked. Some people played top tier characters, and that's, they were very good, very effective. But yeah, you saw a really big diversity. And I think Tekken 7 is interesting because of coming back to that. Tekken 7 is a game where you're seeing a lot of diversity. You're seeing a lot of characters being played in tournaments. And that's always a good sign that the game is going to have a healthy lifespan. You can see a lot of characters, and you can see a lot of discoveries with characters. That makes a huge difference in the game. So Tekken 7 is getting back to that. I know people have been kind of worried with how Tekken 6 was and how Tag was, because Tag was pretty ridiculous. But both tag games were.
That's the one I actually remember the most was Tekken Tag.
Oh, Tag 1 was just disgusting. It's beautiful. Just absolutely disgusting, the things that happened. So, yeah.
And that was one of the things I pointed out to one of our guys, Kirkland. I was saying how, or for any of you guys, AKs or Retro, the damage difference. Because I remember, I'm playing Tekken Tag, and the damage difference to what I see now, you have to do so much work in Tekken 7 compared to the older ones, I should say. Mm-hmm. But obviously, a lot of games evolve over time. But I remember, I can't remember, was it Tekken 3 actually that I'm thinking about? That you can knock somebody out, 3 or 4 good hits?
The first 3 Tekkens were like that. Tekken Tag, you had 2 life bars. So the damage seemed like a lot, but you had another character. So you just leave, and the other character comes in, and things are fine. So it's a little tricky because you only have to really knock out 50% to win if you catch a character before they can tag out. But Tekken 7, you do a lot of damage. So Tekken 7 is still closer to Tekken 5 than Tekken 6 was, because Tekken 7 can be a two juggle game. You know, if you have, especially if you have a wall stage, most any round hinges on two juggles, and then after that, you put poking in there, you put whip punishing or block punishing, then you're down to one juggle. So that's why you see a lot of high level matches. They don't have a bunch of juggles in them because the damage adds up pretty quick if you do stuff that's not safe. If you don't cover yourself, you can die pretty quick in Tekken 7. So, but I don't think it's very easy to get that damage without a lot of knowledge, and I think that makes a big difference versus what a lot of people were ending up experiencing at tag. Because tag just made you mad real quick with rage combos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the character choices in this game. I noticed that in a lot of games that I play, you'll see, even games that you just watch, you'll see a lot of the meta usually. There's always those specific things that you will either be playing with, say in Call of Duty or anything like that, or in fighting games, it's a certain person that normally you always see in a top tier play. But in this game, it seems like it's a little bit more widespread, almost personal to players.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. There's some really good characters. Like Devil Jin's still amazing, but Devil Jin, with him being in Mishima, you have this inherent skill gap from just being able to pick him up to win. And so I think that's what is really good is a lot of characters that are really good, you have to play Tekken well to unlock how good they are. So things change. Like at low level, Katarina's ridiculous. She's absolutely ridiculous, and she's built that way on purpose. But you know, the further you move along, the less Katarinas you see in a tournament because it's harder to rein her in because she's made to not be the safest character in the world for her to get damage because of the ease of use. And so yeah, Tekken definitely is a game where you're expressing yourself with the character that you pick. I've been playing Lee for a very long time. He's really difficult to play. He appears to be very easy when you see him because nothing of his looks like it takes a lot of execution, but he fools you as far as what he has to do in order to win. And he's a character that he improves with your character knowledge of the game. So the more you know about everybody else, the better Lee performs because he doesn't have the mix-up capacity. He doesn't have the tricks right out of the gate like some other characters can lean on in order to make it happen.
I do notice that a lot whenever I watch you play. You
Yeah.
kind of let them come to you, and then the punishment incurs.
Yeah, I don't have very much I can do to impose my will unless you're scared. So it's more of you have to see what's coming and just deal with it appropriately. And so he's what a lot of people called a tourney mid character, where he doesn't have very many bad matchups, but if you don't know how to defend well, then he has a very bad time. Just because he takes a lot of knowing what other people can do so you can shut down their options. Yeah, that's very important for him. Another character like that that's very important, even though people don't like him, is Paul. Paul, he's playing just pure Tekken. He doesn't have a whole bunch of mix-ups. He has to get you scared. Once he gets you scared, okay, then he might roll on you. But if you're just playing, he's very honest. Very honest character.
You know what? We talked about that earlier, and I want to kind of expand on that that phrase you said, playing Tekken.
Right.
Instead of playing a character, you're playing Tekken. What does playing Tekken actually mean?
Right. So playing Tekken is you understand the guidelines of the game to the point to where you could perform decently with any character because you know, okay, the move that I blocked is not safe, so I know I can at least punch this guy. I know I can at least launch this guy with a hop kick. I know that if I low parry this, I can at least do this simple combo to get him to the wall. And so once you're playing Tekken, you become reasonably proficient at simple things the game offers everybody. and that alone can allow you to win. And so that's why you'll see a lot of high level players. They'll pick up characters, and even if they don't know all the super duper secret big boy stuff, they still do well because they'll learn one good combo, they'll learn a good wall combo, and they will use their knowledge of what the other characters do and what they have to always defend against, no matter what character they're playing. They will use that and be able to have a decent game plan going into the fight. And that's one thing about Tekken that makes it very different than even Street Fighter. Street Fighter, you have to have a little bit more understanding of what each character does because it hinges on capitalizing on openings to be able to get your combos. And outside of tick throws, there's not many universal things that you can do in Street Fighter. Whereas in Tekken, everybody has basic moves, everybody has a launcher, everybody has a down forward four, everybody has a couple of decent things that they could make happen if they know how to defend properly and ultimately win the match.
And it sounds like even if you are just playing Tekken, that you still have to have some form of basic psychology behind knowing what your opponent's going to do. If you at least play enough Tekken to know.
Yes, yes. That's why Mokujin for certain people can be viable because they know enough about each character to be dangerous, but more importantly, they know more about what to defend against. So that way, it doesn't matter which character Mokujin becomes, they can figure out how to overcome the general offense of who they're fighting. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And that's actually super cool.
Yeah, it's very, very cool.
And that's some of the ideas that we've had talking about going further into the psychology behind the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I know in these segments we want to talk more about muscle memory going into a game with the idea of my mind and body already knows what it needs to do. So now I need to start playing their character, not just mine.
You definitely want to master your own character as best as you can, so that way you're not depending on being in the right place at the right time. You have a really good feeling you're already there, and once you get to the point where you know the ranges of your character, you know what you're doing, then you spend most of your time looking at the other person's character and looking at what they're doing. And that's how you truly find the openings. That's how you truly find when they're asleep at the wheel. That's how you truly find out, oh, okay, they're sidewalking right now. I can bust them in the head with Claudio's running to, or whatever the case may be. You're not able to see that until you can stop looking at your character because you're going to be okay. And when they come in, I'm going to do such and such. And then you can focus on them. And so it's a big turning point when you get there. And you can kind of see that when you're playing a lot of people in Atlanta and you're playing a lot of high-level players, is that they're not necessarily paying attention to their character on the screen. They're actually looking at the other person actively to see what they're doing, to see what's going on, so they can prepare themselves for things that they've already put together beforehand of how they're going to react to certain advances or certain attacks, etc.
Which is absolutely crazy to me because that tells you how it's not only, kind of like we go through these days talking about esports being real sports.
Right.
And then 100%, when you deal with something like you just talked about, that is the definition of a sport.
Yeah.
Physically, not only physically being able to do your trait or your job, but also prepping yourself for what your opponent's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that case, that'll bring me to the next thing that I wanted to talk about was not only what do you have to anticipate when you're trying to think of the best way to put this, when you've got the muscle memory down. How do you get from, okay, I know how to do this, I know how to work my character, what do I need to do now to make sure I get the win? What's the end result here?
That's a really good question. So once you have a decent amount of skill with the character, then your next job is to come up with a game plan. And your game plan is going to have a lot of levels, but you're going to start off with 2 or 3, and your goal is really not to show all of your talents until you have to. So think of it this way. All right, so let's say I go into this match, and in round 1, I want to use 6 particular moves, no throws, just 6 moves. Okay. So if you win that first round, then the next round you're going, okay, I'll do the same thing. And then they say they beat you at the same time. So now you're like, all right, so they beat me with 6 moves, so I'll go to level 2. So now I'll add 4 more moves that complement those 6 moves, and I'll add regular throws. So then the new additions are maybe enough to throw somebody off to where you win again. And then you do that same thing the next round, because your goal is not to show off any more than you have to in order to get the win. So sometimes when matches look really boring, it's not because the player doesn't know anything, it's because the player doesn't have to do it. And there's no reason to do more than you have to win. Because especially in a tournament, you're going to play a lot of people. And so the least amount of knowledge and tech you can show off, the better off you are, because then it will be a surprise.
It's the duck on the water analogy.
Yeah,
Calm on top, chicken on the bottom.
Yeah. The longer you can keep the duck under the water and just, skate on by, the better off you are. So that's why a lot of matches aren't that flashy. They're not going to be. That's not like first to tens where you're trying to make somebody famous and get on YouTube. You're trying to get through, man. You're just trying to skate by.
So what are your
Hands.
thoughts? Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts on playing multiple characters? But when you get to a point that you're ready to start competing, and I'm not talking about like a weekly at home, I'm talking about like you want to go to Atlanta and you want to play in a big tournament. What are your thoughts on playing multiple characters, or should you dedicate yourself to being good at one?
That's really tough. I don't think there's anything wrong with multiple characters, but you have to have a really good foundation in the game before you do something like that. The reason it's usually good for somebody to dedicate a lot of time to one character, and then once that character is at a pretty high mastery level, then they branch off to somebody else, because that next character they pick is going to be one that they pick for troublesome matchups for their first character. But you can't truly figure out if a matchup is a bad matchup for you until you have a very good skill level to where you understand, okay, I'm doing the best that I can, and I can beat the characters that I'm supposed to beat on paper, but I'm having a hard time with this. So at that point, you're like, okay, maybe I need to find someone else to deal with this. And then you can get them leveled up to a decent skill level to be that counter pick. But if you start with a lot of characters at the beginning, it can be really difficult, because you can end up muddling a lot of your fundamentals, and you can end up being, depending on the characters, you may end up being very gimmicky. And you just have things that work really well, but you don't have a chance to truly play that character or Tekken, because you're switching a lot and thinking you're improving your chances on a matchup, whereas once you play somebody else and they know that character, then you're in trouble. Because if you play a specialist, let's say you play like Mr. Naps, he's a Brian specialist. He knows the little punishes, he knows the things, he knows the deepest, darkest secrets of almost all the characters. So you could be a multi-character you could be a multi-character player, and then when you go against him, you realize he knows everything about everything. And you may lack intimate knowledge between the two of your characters that could give you a better chance playing someone who only knows one character. But you got to think about it. A lot of Korean players, they're at the mastery level where they have 2 or 3 characters that are just super high level. They're just really good.
Wow.
So they proves on a regular basis. He plays Tekken. He plays whatever character he wants. Won a tournament with Lulu. I mean, it doesn't matter. Wins with Mishimas, he wins with Brian, he wins with Paul. It's one of those things that you get to a certain point where you transcend the characters and you're just playing Tekken. And then
It's kind of a different form of playing Tekken.
yeah,
You play all the Tekken.
yeah, all of Tekken doesn't matter. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how do you go about training to play this game in form of, like, say you sat down when you first started playing Lee. What
Okay.
made you, like, what did you do to practice? What did you do to get better at that character? That other players that might, that are going to watch this can be like, okay, maybe I should go about the way he did it. Did you spend hours in the training sessions? Did you just spend hours online? Did you study his combos?
Uh, I mean, I started playing League when online play was non-existent. So we're talking back 1999.
The good days. Yeah.
I mean, I think today's are good days, but yeah, I started off playing League and Tekken Tag. And I actually started playing him because he looked like Trunks off Dragon Ball Z.
I like it. I like where this is going.
Then I got into the story. There haven't been a lot of League players in the U.S. at all at any given time.
I noticed that. That's such an odd thing.
No, he's just he is.
I guess I say that just to see many players not play him, and then when I see you play in our weeklies,
Yeah,
and you just flawless.
he's a labor of love. I think he put it best, and he says, if you play League and you don't mind losing, but you want to be stylish, he's a good character. And that's because he knows that before this patch, Lee took a lot of work in he took more work in Tekken 7, and you had to just be very present. A lot of poking, a lot of hit confirms, a lot of whiff punishing to really draw out. Because he's good at hit confirms, he's good at whiff punishing, he's good at block punishing. He has great wall juggles, great wall carry. So on paper, he sounds great until you go to play him and you realize the execution barrier can be higher than what you would want to win in a tournament. To play a lot of games and consistently win, his execution barrier he's a character that wears on you. He needs a lot of cardio to get you through a tournament. But there's some notable League players. Even going back to when Little Maj and I were playing back in Texas. We were playing Lee versus Lee in Tekken 5, and there was Rushdown over in California. You got Fighting GM, Jody the Great. Zero the Shadow was playing Lee in New York. Hitman Lee up in Atlanta, Daryl. He's taught me a lot of stuff. And, there wasn't a lot of people to bounce ideas off of back then. We actually had a really good forum on Tekken Zaibatsu for League players. And we really worked hard. Curtis Murakumo, he's up in Washington. Great guy. He does a lot of really in-depth combo breakdowns of how things work. And so he's a really good person to just watch some old Lee videos. But yeah, there's only a handful. And now you've got Bravo. He's playing up in Washington, and he's doing really well. I got to play him at the final round, and we had a good time. Just a lot of Lee action. But yeah, he's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. He's not going to be most people's cup of tea because he definitely makes you feel like you're working a lot for the win. And yeah, sometimes you just don't want that. Sometimes you just want to death fist somebody in the stomach with Paul.
But if you get that hair flick at the end, it's worth it. I mean, Lee's he's a flawless looking character.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, as long as you can look stylish, then
he's always stylish. I mean, he's great. But I liked him, and I was in the camp where you play the character that you like and you learn. So I got on Game Facts, and I would practice with one of my really good friends, Shin Kular. We were roommates in college, and we would practice at the arcade. And then we started making the journey up to Atlanta, and then Atlanta was really gracious and took us in, and so they beat us into shape. That's just attended their tournaments on a regular basis, and they beat us into shape. And it came to a point where they were like, yeah, they're pretty solid. And so, you know, get a lot of final round practice playing in that and traveling. And, just to answer your question though, as far as practice, what I would normally do with each game is I try to figure out the new stuff because Lee never gets to keep good things. It's one thing you'll learn about him is they'll give him something, it'll be really good, be very happy about it. It's going to go away the next game. That's just how it is. Um, Tekken 7, they treated him really well, especially after this patch. So I can't complain about him at all. But you try to look at his new stuff, try to figure out if the wall carries the same, and then he comes down to what's going to be the strongest punishment you get off a block. What do I need to do? What's going to be evasive? Because they'll give him some things like down three is very evasive move, almost like Art of Phoenix as far as ducking under stuff. And so he takes a lot of little things, and it all adds up to be a really he's a beautiful masterpiece as long as you add up all the little things. But if you don't add up those little things, then he doesn't.
It sounds like a lot of dedication.
Yes.
Just staying dedicated to the character that you pick, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, he is. He is. I think in this game, this is probably one of his best renditions besides Tekken 4. He really gets rewarded for his efforts in Tekken 7.
That's good.
So
I'm happy for you.
and I'm happy too. So, but yeah, just block punishment. You sit down, you look at all the characters, you see. I try to see what the moves look like because the biggest thing is just knowing what the moves look like and having an idea in your mind of, okay, I've already punished this before. I know what to do. Because you can get into a situation where you know something's not safe, but you haven't practiced what you want to do against it. So you're so indecisive, and when something's negative 15, that's 15ths of a second. It's not a long time. So if you don't have the muscle memory to hit that button, you'll miss it, and then you missed your free damage. And in Tekken, at a high level, if you miss enough free damage, you will lose because the other person's not going to miss as much as you, and that's what it comes down to. So, go through their move list, see what the moves look like that are not safe, so that way I know what I need to punish, and you take a week and drill each character into your head.
I do have it's a weird question.
Sure.
I just popped in my head, and I don't know if actually it might be a big deal to you guys, but the stage you play on. So what are some of the areas on the stage? And I'm not meaning just specific stages. I mean in the form of the area of the stage, like the wall, the corners. Is there, where do you want to be? Where do you don't want to be? Is that a valid concern in the game? Because it seems like whenever you see, obviously, when you just like in boxing or anything else, when you get stuck on the wall, you want to get off.
True.
But you see guys when we play in our locals that freak out. They just got to get them off the wall. Got to get them off the wall.
True. The wall is one of those things that it's normally not a good place to be, but it's a good skill to understand what you need to do to fight off the wall. Tekken is a game where you can block and be okay. So you have to understand that the person still has to hit you or throw you to get you on the wall. So as long as you remember that, there's nothing wrong with sitting and waiting and slowly circling around to get away from it. If you take a couple hits, that's okay. It's usually not the end of the world. You have a life bar. It's not a one-hit KO for a reason. So a lot of times you have to just you minimize your damage that you're taking and you leave, or you can fight on the wall. Sometimes you can trick people and then you can just end up fighting on the wall. Good thing to know is the 2+4 throw for almost every character, it side switches even if they break the throw. So if you want to put them on the wall, it's the easy way to do it. You just grab them and switch sides. Now you're not on the wall anymore. Doesn't matter if they broke it or not.
So, I do see that a lot.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to deal with it. But yeah, panicking, you're right. Panicking is not one of them. You can't panic.
I feel like your muscle memory goes completely out the window at that point.
Mm,
I mean, of course, if you can reel back, that would be what you want to do.
Yeah, it does.
But you see a lot of guys when they start getting flustered. I mean, when the panic walks in,
Yeah.
And when the panic sets in, then the frustration sets in, and then it's nothing but a mental game when you've stopped playing against your character or playing against your opponent. You're now playing against yourself.
Right. And then at that point, you let the other person hang themselves and you call it a day. But yeah, I mean, the only character that probably really scares, Paul. Paul always scares you because you're one death fist away from, when the wall's behind you, you're one death fist away from looking at all of your life choices. Because that's what happens.
What got me here?
Exactly. You wonder. You take a moment to think. You're like, you know what? I really thought I was doing better than this. But Paul reminds you that that's not always the case. So besides Paul, I don't think there's anybody else that really just. I don't have anybody else that I'm really scared about. And Paul is a very limited thing. You have to be, okay, this death is going to kill me. I don't like where I'm at, sort of situation. Yeah.
Makes sense. To kind of sidestep from what we're talking about right now, to get out of the game and let's go into what makes a person stay playing that game. And I think one of the biggest things of that is a community to play in. Kind of like you bring it back to your story of when you started.
Right.
You said Atlanta brought you in and they taught you the ways and whatnot. And I think that's an important factor. What are your thoughts? What are your traditions and community that you like to look for?
Well, you have a lot of, usually the progression of getting to a tournament level is you start off playing really well locally. And we had a pretty good community in Macon and Warner Robins back when the mall had Aladdin's Castle. And we had some really good players. We had some solid players. Just for the skill level we were able to develop.
I'm trying to put a time period on that. What game was that?